Sure. Hey guys, looks like my camera's not working. Let me reset that really quick. Hopefully that will fix it. If not, we don't need my camera. Uh, yeah, it looks like my camera is just not picking up. Okay, well we'll just go with our screen here. Sorry about that. Um, so welcome back to another video. I'm inviting you guys along with a journey that I'm on where I'm just developing a personal project, and I thought anyone that wants to sit in and ask questions or follow along is welcome to. I welcome any questions in the chat about anything that we're working on, or if you have anything else that you just want to ask, feel free to do so, and I'll do my best to answer any questions as we go. So I'd love to communicate with you guys. That's why I'm doing this. Otherwise, I could just sit at home and code this out probably faster on my own without streaming it, and definitely without the stress of people watching me. So if you guys want, let's interact a little bit. Okay, so where we left off in the last video is we finished up some migrations, and now we can run migrations, and we added 3 tables with our migrations. Those tables were our users tables, our access tokens, and let's see, let's go and look at those. So access tokens, email confirmations, we don't have anything in there yet. We don't have anything in any of these tables yet. We just have our columns, and then our migrations table keeps track of the migrations that have already run, so that it will run any database migrations that we have not yet completed. So a couple things that we need to do is we need to add models for these, and after we add models, we will want to start building out some of our login registration functionality. So that's kind of where I want to start today. And so let's do it. First things first, though, we don't have any models, so let's go ahead and let's generate a command to create those models. But first, let's decide how these models are going to work. So let's go and open up core model. And so all of our models are going to extend this core class, this parent model class. And we're going to need to be setting up the table and whether or not it is soft deleted. And by default, we'll probably also just set some before save stuff for timestamps. We'll just assume that most tables are going to have timestamps, I think. And so the way the models will work, let me go ahead and create one real quick. We'll get rid of this, but I just want to show you how it will work. So users.php. So this we'll need to namespace this, and this is going to be app models, and then it will use app core model, and then the class will be whatever name. So this will be user or users, either way. I usually like to do mine with plural. So it'll be user, and it'll extend the model class. And then we need a couple things to be put in place by default. Number one, we need to define a couple things. One being a public stat, or actually not public. Let's do protected static, and we'll do table. And the table will be the name of the tables that this model is referencing. So we'll want that, and then we can also set soft delete to true if it's going to be a soft deleted model. The next thing that we want to be able to do is set our properties up. So in this case, we'll have like ID, created at, updated at, deleted. Let me look. Did I add deleted at timestamps? Didn't really add that, I don't think. Let's look for soft delete. Yeah. Okay, we're just gonna leave it as this. That's totally fine. So these will be kind of our default values that we'll have for every table. And the reason I'm doing this is because I don't want to write out this boilerplate every time. So I'm just showing you how we're going to do this. So we'll do a public function before save. And on the before save, since most of these are going to have timestamps, we're going to call this timestamps. Okay. I'll keep checking back on my chats. All right, so the timestamps are going to set created at and updated at every time a record is inserted or updated. So this is basically what I want here. So we need to build a command out to make these deals. So we have a command to make commands, which is pretty cool. So let's go ahead and I am exec into or tunneled into my container. And so we can run PHP runner generate command, and I'm going to call this command generate model. Okay, it says it created it successfully. Let's go check that out. So in our commands, we do have a new command called generate model command. So let's go ahead and we'll do generate command, just like that. No, not command. We already have one of those. We're going to do generate model. And this description will be create a new model from a table name. I think that's how I want to do it. So the first thing that we want to be able to do is we want them to pass as a parameter the table. So let's do table is equal to this params, and we're taking the first parameter from that. So let's just dump and die table and see what that looks like. So if I run this, it's going to be, let me just make my text a little bit bigger. If I run PHP runner generate model, I want to pass in users like that as a parameter, and you can see that it grabs that, and now we have users printed to the screen. So that I'm happy with that. And so the next thing that we're going to do is if they don't pass that in, or if we forget to pass that in, we want to kill the script and give them a useful error message. So let's just do that. If not table, and actually, let's do if empty table. If there's empty table, then what we're going to do is we will do an info message, and we'll say you must provide the table name, and that will be an error message, and we'll just return. So let's test that really quick. I like to test things as I go. Let's get rid of the users. Undefined array key 0 here. So let's fix that. We'll do a null coalesce here to an empty string. So now it gets rid of the warning and then tells us you must provide a table name, and then stops. Okay, good. So we have a table name now, and we have this. What I'd like to be able to do is let's we might want to pass in a table name like this. So if we pass a table name something like generate model access tokens, what I want that to translate to is access tokens model, like this. So each word, this is going to be Pascal, not Pascal case. Let's see, I get these cases mixed up. So we got snake case, camel case, and Pascal case. Yeah, so I think this is a snake case. But anyway, it doesn't matter if I'm wrong on that. You can let me know in the chat. So anyway, what I'd like to be able to do is take that table name and we're going to create a class name from that. So the first thing I want to do is we'll do table, let's do table array, and let's explode that by underscores, the table. And then what we're going to do is let's say table is equal to, and then we'll just implode that again. And the separator we'll do an underscore for now. Oops, not table. We don't want to set table. We want to keep that. This is going to be the class name. So we'll implode that, and we're going to implode, let's see. For each one of these array elements, so let's do an array walk. I think that's one way we can do it. Let's do an array walk, and this takes an array by reference. So we'll just pass in table array, and then it takes a function, a callback function. And what we're going to do in the callback function is it will pass each individual part in, and then we are going to say return UC words part, something like that. So let's look at what that is. So DD, let's look at the table array. Access and tokens, it did not capitalize those, so why not? Turn UC words part. Part equals, I haven't used this array walk in a while. I think we get to return it though. Let's look it up. PHP array walk. Well, one thing in this anonymous function, we do have a key here. So what we might have to do is say table array key. Let's try that. I don't think we should have to do that. This is being passed in by reference. Only the values of the array may potentially change. Its structure cannot be altered. That makes sense. Change each element of an array. Maybe we shouldn't use array walk. Really. All right. Let's try it this way, which is what I did originally. However, do we have to pass this explicitly by reference? We don't need key. Oh, I guess we do. I thought we... Yeah, I guess we have to tell it it's by reference. All right. Anyway, that gets us the parts. And then for the class name, we'll do this. And then I think we'll just do... We'll wrap this with string replace. We're going to search for underscores and replace those with an empty string like this. Let's dump and die class. Okay, so now we have, based on our table name, we have access tokens, which is good. That's what I want. All right, and then I'm just gonna double check my stream here, guys. Give me 1 second. Okay, just making sure we're live on Rumble and on YouTube. Okay, yeah, I think we're doing good here. All right, cool. So the next thing that we need to do, so we have our class name now, and we also have our table name. So let's put a path together, and the path of this will be, we have our app path, and we'll concatenate on models. Oops. And then class. Put this as double quotes so we can do string interpolation. And then we'll concatenate on, which I need to wrap this in curly brackets if I'm going to do this, I think. All right, so now we have a full path name. So let's go ahead and do the content of the file now. So content is going to be, we'll use a HereDoc here. And on this, we're going to say PHP namespace app models use app core model, and then we'll do class, and then right here the class is going to be class, and that's going to extend model. Okay. The next thing that I want to do is we will put the protected static table. That's going to be equal to, we're going to have to escape those. So table, that will be equal to table protected static. Again, we have to escape this. Protected static soft delete is equal to true. And you know what I should do as well? I'm going to try to increase my font here, but oh well. Next thing we'll do, we have that, we'll do public ID created updated at deleted. We'll just put those in as our defaults, and all of those need to be escaped. Perfect. All right, and then I want to do a public function before save, and here we're just going to call this time stamps, and that's it. This, I think we're also gonna have to escape that. All right, let's try it. After this content, we'll do file put contents. The file name will be the path, and then content here. And then we'll do this info actually better success is equal to, and our message, if it's success, let's do model created. Else we're gonna say model creation failed. Let's see. So then we'll do an info. Actually, and then our type. Let's do a message type. So if it's success, then we want to pass in success. Else error. And then we can just pass message and message type like that. Let's try it. Let's try to make our access token one. So it says it worked. Let's go look. And now we have in the models folder, we have a new access token model. Let's just look through and make sure everything's right. Looks good so far. Yeah, I think I'm happy with this. So this will actually set up everything we need to have models working for that table. So let's use that command now and create one for email confirmations. And let's create one for users. There we go. So now we have, which I need to delete this one. But now we have one for the 3 tables that we created in our last migration. We could have made this as part of, you know, the migration script. I don't know. I kind of like the power of not automatically creating a model with a migration. But the benefit of that, it would have been a lot more code, but we could have filled in all the properties, not just, because now what we're going to have to do is we're going to open each one of these up. And let's go and look at our migrations. And I'm just going to split this right, so I have it over here and we can reference it. But let's go ahead now and look at like these different models, because we need to add these properties. So the biggest one is going to be the users table. So let's do that first. I think what I'm going to do is put these in here. We'll do account ID, first name, last name, email, password, last login at, what was the next one? Force password reset. And what I'm going to do is on this, we're going to set a default value on this, and I'm going to set that default value to 1. Because when I create a new user, we're going to make them set up a password. The next thing I'm going to do is email confirmed, and that one's going to be the opposite. That's going to, when you create a new user, that'll be set to 0 by default. And then active will be set to 1 by default. And then that is all of our properties that live in that table. So now we can do the access token one, which would be much easier. Public, and we'll just do user ID and token. That's it for that one. And then email confirmation is very simple as well. That will be user ID and token. All right, perfect. So we have our 3 models now. What we want to be able to do is let's work on a registration page. So there's going to be 2 different ways that I want users to be added to the system. Number one is when someone registers, they're creating an account. But I want accounts to have many users. So for example, I want one single account for my whole family, and then each person in my family is going to be a user. So when you register, it'll create an account, but once you create an account, the account owner should be able to invite other users to that account and add their user ID. So that's what we'll do. We're going to create 2 separate ways to create users. So with that, we need to be able to do this through an API, because the front end is going to interact with this as an API. So let's add some endpoints to do this. First thing we need to do though is we need to set up routes for this. And in order to do that, I'm going to create a new, let's see, where do I want this to live? We have API public. Let's go ahead and put it in the root here, and we're just going to create a package that we're going to call routes, and all of our routes are going to go inside of there. So let's create a new file, and let's call this API v1.php. Okay, and for this, what what we're going to do is start off by just creating a function, and we're going to give the function the same name. So it's going to be API v1, and the app will get passed into this. And then essentially we're gonna do routing just like Slim suggests, but at the end of this we're just going to return the app. Okay, so the way that's going to work is we're going to include that in the index.php. So after the body parsing middleware, we're going to say app is equal to, and then we're going to call that API v1 function and pass app into it. And that's all we have to do for each of our API routes in order for it to work. But this is just a PHP file, so this is not a class and it won't be auto-loaded. So we need to go and add that to the composer.json. And inside their files here, we're going to include we're going to include routes API v1.php. And then in order for that to work, we need to run composer, and we can do two things. We can run install, or we can just specifically run dump dash autoload, and that will take our file and rebuild those. It generates the autoload files. So now we should have our application here. So there's a couple things that we need to do though in order for this to work. We're going to have two different types of routes in here. Well, probably more than that, but we're at least going to have two different types of routes. We're going to have authenticated routes and we're going to have unauthenticated routes. So when someone's registering for the application, they're not logged in, so those will be unauthenticated. So what we're going to do is we are going to include a couple things. The first thing we're going to include is the Slim routing route collector proxy. Yep, just like that. And then what we're going to do, we're going to add more to this, but just to make this simple for now, we're going to add a group to this, and anytime anything in our application is /API /v1, then we're going to send it through this. So the way that we do this is we pass in a route collector proxy, and we'll just name this group. And what we're going to do then is set up any routes we have like this. So I'm going to put a comment in here, and we're going to put unauthorized routes. I'm going to do another comment above here because I want my authorized routes to be up top. Okay. So underneath our unauthorized, let's put another comment. I like to keep mine kind of separated by comments for the different sections. And what we're going to do is we're going to put auth routes like this. And then to do an auth route, then we're just going to say group. And we're going to add another group to this group. And anytime it's /API /v1 /auth, then what we're going to do is we're going to add another function that's a route collector proxy, and we'll just call this auth this time just to make it a little simpler to read. This gets kind of nested, and we have to have a / here, by the way. Then what's going to happen is we're going to put each one of our routes inside of here now. And so the way this will work is we're going to say auth, and then we can give it a verb. We can say like post, get, patch, put, delete, any of that. But we're going to do a post for our first one. And the post is going to be /register. And when that happens, then we get to put our controller class name. So the way that Slim works is, let's say we had an auth controller, it would look like this. There would be auth controller colon, and then the name of the method that you want to call. So we would call this like register. So that's how that works. What I'd like to do though is I like to create controllers, and I like to use this just a little bit different. So I'll show you. Inside of our app, we have a controllers directory, but it's empty right now. So let's go ahead and create a new controller, and we're going to call this auth controller.php. I'm going to make all my controllers end with the word controller. And give this a namespace of app controllers. And we could organize these controllers because, but for now I'm going to leave them in just the controllers folder. We could kind of break them out in modules or something, but that's okay. We're going to just to get started, let's just say this is a class auth controller. And inside of here, we're just going to have a public method that we're going to call register, like that. But I have to use the keyword function. And inside of here, let's just dump and die made it, something like that. So what we're going to do now is just test this whole deal out. So in order to do that, we're going to use Postman. So in Postman, I'm going to create a new collection here. This collection I'm going to call Memorability. That's the name of the project here. And I'm going to add a folder called auth. And inside that folder, we're going to add a new request. And this request is going to be, we're going to call it register. It's going to be a post type. And we're going to send that, we'll create a variable called base URL / and we're going to send this to API /v1 /auth /register. So that'll be a post. The authorization is not going to have any authorization, but the headers, let's put content type. We'll put that as application JSON. For the body, we're going to use raw JSON here. And what we're going to do for the registration is going to look like this, where we're going to say first name, Curtis, last name, Parham, email. This will be give you guys all my personal email. Just joking. I'm not gonna do that. We're not gonna pass in a we could pass in a password here to make our lives simpler, but I don't think we're going to, because when we invite people, we don't want to set a password for them. So let's see what else is in our users table that we need. So in users, we have first, last, email, pass will be nothing. We're not going to send that in. Yeah, I think that's all we need for now. So we'll do that. And so let's go ahead and hit send. And we got a problem because base URL isn't yet defined. So I can go to my environments. I'm going to add a new environment here. I'm going to call this memorability. And I'll call it local. Memorability, I'm going to do dash local. And for the variables, we'll do base URL. And for the, that will be HTTP / localhost, like that. I believe that'll work. Oops. We'll save that, go back, and now we, underneath the environment, we'll select that memorability local. Let's try to send that now. Okay, so now we're hitting the API, but we do have a slim application error. So let's see what that error is. Callable auth controller register does not exist. Right. That's because back here we need to do a little more work to this route. In order to make this work, let's add another use statement, and I'm going to use a group here, but we're going to use app controllers. Actually, we might not even need to do that. I think let's try it with just spelling this correctly. Auth controller register does not exist. Let's try it this way. Use app controllers. Yeah, I think I just want to do it like this. We'll put this in a group, and then what we can do here is take this out of this string, and we'll do auth controller class, and then we'll concatenate on the register part like that. That should work now. All right, sweet. So now we know our routing is working, and because it made it to the controller where we printed made it. Like I said, I like to start small. It's always a good idea when you're first setting up a framework too, to just like do a little bitty steps so you don't get too far and realize that your debug process is, you know, many layers deep. Okay, how long have we been streaming for? 44 minutes? Man, that went fast. Okay, so we have our API. We're going to add all of our routes to this file for this version 1 of the API. That's what the front end is going to be using to post information to. But while we're building the API, we'll just use Postman, and we won't have to worry about building out the front end the exact same time as we're building out the back end. Okay. So I'm going to close this migration. We don't need that anymore. With the register user, our controllers are going to get pretty sweet because they're going to be really short. We're going to do kind of a lot of work to make sure that you know, our validation doesn't need to happen in the controller. It'll happen on the model level, and we'll also do all, you know, all of our, you know, assignments and things like that. We'll also do. We'll maybe have to kind of clean up the model file a little bit to allow for some of that. But my goal is to keep each of these actions as short and clean as possible, and then put the biggest portion of the logic inside of the model itself, so that the controller is just controlling things that controllers should control, which is, you know, passing stuff onto the models and then passing things back to the view. The other thing that I want to go ahead and do is we're going to set up a base controller. And in order for that to work, I want to add functionality that we can use in a lot of different places. But first, yeah, let's build out a base controller that we can extend these with. And I'm just going to stick this, I think, in the same file. We could add this base controller into the core. I'm trying to decide if we want to do that or not. It probably makes sense, but I can see it going both ways. Dang it. Yeah, oh man. Let's just add it in the same thing. That's just one of those things that I could go either way, and if you decide to put it as a core file, you can. But yeah, I'm just gonna create a new PHP file, base controller, and inside of here, we're gonna give this a namespace also of app controllers. And then we're gonna use PSR container interface, and we'll also use trying to decide if we should set up views. I think we're gonna have to set up views because we're gonna send emails and those won't be handled through React, they'll be handled through here. So let's go ahead and install the Slim's views stuff. Let me look at what that's supposed to be. I think that needs to be, yeah, let's go to composer.json here. Actually, Slim php-view. We can just do composer require Slim php-view. Okay, so that's installed now. You can see it right here in our require, which is cool. So we need to use that in our base controller. So in our base controller, let's set up use Slim views PHP renderer. Then what we're going to do is give it the class name. It's of course going to be called base controller, and then let's give it a couple properties. First of all, let's pass the DI here and a body, and then we're going to do a public function construct, and we're going to pass in the container interface, and container will be passed in with this when it's instantiated. And so with that, we'll say this DI is going to be equal to the container, and this view is going to be equal to a new PHP renderer, and we'll set this up as, let's see, base path. Actually, we can use app path for this because I think it makes sense to put in the views folder. This we're not going to pass any attributes by default to that, and then we'll set up a layout called layouts default.phtml. Okay. The next thing that we want to do is I want to create just a few methods that we can use to communicate back with to our front end in a very streamlined and reliable way. And so we're going to create two things. Number one is we're going to respond with JSON. So let's create a function called JSON response. That's going to take in a response, some data by default, and a status. And the status on this is by default going to be set to 200 in case we don't pass that in. And then what that's going to do is we can use Slim's get body method, and we're going to write to that. And what we're going to write is JSON encode And we're going to encode that data. And I'm going to give this a flag of JSON invalid UTF-8 substitute. So that if there's a character or something that we're trying to pass back from the database or anything that isn't valid UTF-8, it'll substitute it, because what happens is JSON encode will just fail if we don't do that. I had to learn that the hard way. The next thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to return that response, but we're going to give it a header. And the header that we need is content type application JSON. And we'll give it with status, and we'll pass in our status to it, just like that. That's all we need to do for the JSON response, but I want to create two wrapper functions that we can use on a more, we're going to use this indirectly. So these are wrapper functions. We'll do API response. And the API response is going to take the response and the data that you pass to it. And what that's going to do is just return this JSON response, pass the response and the data to it. And then we're going to do a public function API error response. And that will also take a response. It'll take some errors, which will be defaulted to an empty array, and a message, which will default to there was an error processing your request. Just something real generic like that. And then the status on that, so the status could be we could pass the status, but I'm going to set this by default to 200 because I want my errors to even come back as a 200 for the most part. If I'm using this API error response, I still want that to be a 200 for my front end. So then this is going to return this JSON response, and then we're going to give it a canned thing here where it'll be success is going to be false, and then errors, it's going to return the errors array, and then the message will just be the message, and then finally we will pass that status down. So I want my front end to always expect there to be a Boolean for success, but I want it spelled correctly, and then the errors will be an array, and then we will pass a message with it. So that will keep this the same. Now we could do a little bit of work here. Trying to decide what I want to do here. I think I'll just gonna leave this for now. We could do some, setup with the success stuff and just pass the success as a true or false into this. But I don't think that makes sense right now. I'm gonna leave it like this for now. All right, so in our register function, let's test this now. So if I extend, say this extends the base controller like that, then instead of our dump and die here, let's actually return this API response. And oh, by the way, all of these controller actions will have a request, a response, and arguments passed to them. So we're going to pass that response down. Then let's just give it success, true, and then we'll just say give it some sort of random data to try to first name. this. We'll just do that for now. All right, so let's try that now in Postman. And we have an error, and that's because it's trying to set up that default template, which we haven't built out yet. So the first thing that we need to do with that, I think, is we have views. Inside of our views, we need our layout, and that needs to be a default template. So let's just build that out really quick. We're not actually going to use this, I don't think. So let's see, let's create a new package called layouts, and then we'll also create a new package that we're going to call emails, like that. No, why did it? New package, layouts dot emails. No, I just want views dot emails. And then this one needs to go away. Views dot layouts. Okay. So within the layouts, we told it to use by default a file called default.phtml. And so with that, HTML doc type HTML. Can do boilerplate HTML here. Lang is going to be English. Head, we'll give it a meta with a character set of UTF-8. Meta name viewport content width equals device width initial scale equals 1, and then we're gonna do title. For now, we're just gonna do PHP slim here. That's it for the head. For the body, give this a class equal to container fluid. We're going to be using Bootstrap, I think, just to make it fast. And then what we're going to do here is we're just going to echo out the content, and that'll get put in by, as our IDE is not going to know where this is coming from, but that's going to come from the controller that when it loads the view. So let's see if that works now. Okay, there we go. And as you can see, I can click on pretty here, and we are returning that JSON array. Our status is 200. So now our response is working. Let's go ahead and just test while we're here. Let's test this API error response. That gets the response. For errors, let's just say first name. We'll say first name is required. Let's just pass that and see what happens. Awesome. So now we get, it's still a 200 because we set the status code at 200. We get success false, and then we get an object of errors. So first name, and then We'll get that, and then our message, there was an error processing your request. So awesome, our controller is working the way that I want it to work. What's really cool is now that we've done that, actually, we're really close to being done with this register action. We're going to do a little bit more work, but let's just test it real quick. Let's put, I'm not going to do any kind of validation just yet, but let's just make this super simple. Let's say our body, data is equal to request get parsed body, which is a method given to us by Slim. And then we're going to say user equals new users, and we'll bring that in. So user first name is equal to data first name. We're going to clean this up, but I just wanted to show you that it will work. Last name, data last name, and email. We're going to use the assign on that, but user save. And then what we're going to do here is, and we're just going to pass back for the data. I'm going to pass the user object back to that. So the user will be user to array. I think I have that built out in the model. Maybe not, but let's try it. What? Undefined property force password rest. Okay, yeah, we got an error, a typo in our models. Force password reset. What? Email password last login. Force password reset. Where did it get that error message at? Line 43. Force password reset. That probably means that I have an error in my migration, actually. Right there. Okay. So let's do PHP runner migrations down, and we are going to reverse this migration, and then PHP runner migrations run. Okay, let's try again. Okay, yeah, we don't have to array, but if we go to our database and refresh, we do have this user inserted now. So our timestamps function seems to be working. The account ID we need to populate still. And the first name, last name, last login, force password reset 1, email confirmed 0, active 1, and deleted. Okay, so the only thing screwed up on this, well, it's incomplete, but we don't have a toArray function yet. We'll go ahead and add that in the next video. I do want to add a few more things to our models. Like I want to return a collection of models for things like the find method and stuff like that. So there's a lot of work to do on our model class here. And I think I'm going to kind of update Rua as well to add some of this new functionality. But yeah, this is going to be pretty slick, and it's working really well so far. We got some work to do, but I'm pretty happy with it. And as soon as we get a lot of the smaller system stuff knocked out, like by the time we get a few endpoints done, the rest of the endpoints are going to go incredibly fast because we'll have all of the functions in place to handle almost every situation that will come apart. Mom says, hi, what is this backend for? So if you're just joining us, this is the third episode of a live stream series that I'm doing that I am creating. I'm creating my own personal project, and this API, this backend, is going to function as an API that's going to run a front-end application running off of React, and we're building the application we're building is going to be for me to keep track of all of the different collectibles that I own, because when I go shopping for stuff like retro video games or board games that I like to collect, I can't keep it all in my head, like what Nintendo games I have and things like that. And I want this to be, and it's not just that, like if I'm going to go buy my kids a birthday present, I can't remember everything they have. So what we're going to do is everybody will be able to enter their own things or even a wish list of things they want. And then we can track that. So if I'm at a yard sale and I see Super Mario 3 for Nintendo for $1 or $2 or $5 or whatever it costs, and I don't have to think, do I already have that or not? I can pull it up on my phone or whatever. And so that's the idea. But the bigger picture here is I'm just building this, and I thought if you guys can get some use out of just watching me create a personal project and ask questions, that is super cool, and it's better than just doing it on my own if I can share a little bit of knowledge as I go. So we are, for the backend framework, is using a very slim, which is called Slim, but it's a PHP framework called Slim, and that's just handling the routing and the requests and the responses. It's much like Express is to Node.js. Is kind of how I kind of explain Slim. But the models, we're not using an ORM or anything like that. We rolled our own model. We're rolling basically all of our own functionality. So in the first couple of episodes, we set all this up, and we've created our own command methods, just like kind of similar to Artisan on Laravel. But we built our own, and we can run and create our own commands, and from that we can create migrations and run them and things like that. So, and we do have a list function too. If I just type PHP runner, it gives us a list of our commands that we have available to us so far, and a brief description of what they do. So pretty proud of that, but that's where we're at. So any other questions before I end the stream today, guys? I'll give you a few minutes because I know there's a lag between when I say stuff and when you guys hear it. Okay. Well, I don't think there's anything else. Let me just double check here. All right, no more comments. So sorry if I missed your comment or if it took me a while to answer it, but with that, guys, that was episode 4, and we will continue on in the next video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned something. Ask questions. If you ask questions in the comments, if you're watching this on a replay or a recording, send me your questions and I'll do the best that I can to answer them.